Alina Rahman stood frozen in front of the massive oak desk that had dominated her father's office for as long as she could remember. The room smelled faintly of polished wood and strong coffee, the scent of countless meetings and decisions that had shaped her family's future. Her father, Abdul Rahman, sat behind the desk, flipping casually through a stack of papers as if she weren't standing there, as if the ground beneath her hadn't just crumbled. "You gave Camel the company," Alina said, her voice trembling despite her desperate attempt to hold it steady. Her fingers tightened around the back of the chair in front of her. "Without even telling me?" Mr. Rahman didn't flinch. His weathered hands turned another page. "He's my son, Alina. It's his role to take over." The words landed like a slap. Alina's chest tightened, fury and disbelief rising in equal measure. "His role," she echoed, her voice louder now. "Papa, I've spent years preparing for this. I know the business inside and out. Camel doesn't even," her throat caught. He doesn't care about the company the way I do." Her father finally looked up, his dark eyes calm but impenetrable. "Alina," he said firmly, "this isn't about caring. It's about tradition. And tradition says the son takes over." For a moment, Alina couldn't breathe. The air in the room pressed down on her like a weight. Tradition. That word again. It had haunted her for years, sneaking into every conversation, every decision, like a chain that bound her future to her brother's mediocrity. Alina's past. Her name was Alina Rahman, and she was 28 years old. From the time she could walk, she had grown up in the shadow of her father's empire. Abdul Rahman was a self-made man, the kind of patriarch legends are built on. He had started with nothing, just a single truck and a stubborn dream. Through decades of relentless work, sleepless nights, and ruthless negotiations, he built Rahman Exports, a thriving export business that connected Pakistan's industries with partners around the globe. To Alina, he wasn't just her father. He was a towering figure, stern, demanding, and unyielding, but also the man she admired most. She grew up watching him pour his soul into the company, and by the time she was 15, she knew she wanted to follow in his footsteps. Not just as part of the business, she wanted to lead it. She wanted to carry forward his legacy with the same fire, the same discipline, but with her own vision. She worked relentlessly toward that dream. She graduated with honors, earned a degree in finance, and took internships that threw her into the gritty realities of logistics and global trade. She shadowed her father at the office, sat quietly in the corner of high-stakes meetings, and studied every decision he made. And when she dared to voice her ideas, proposals for streamlining operations, reducing delays, or expanding into new markets, her father would nod, even smile. "You're sharp, Alina," he'd say. "You'd make a great CFO one day." The words always cut her, though she never let it show. CFO. A compliment, yes, but also a limit. Never CEO. Never the heir. That role had always been silently reserved for her younger brother, Camel Rahman. Where Alina was driven and disciplined, Camel was reckless and carefree. He breezed through school with barely passable grades, more interested in late-night parties and soccer matches than studying. While Alina burned through textbooks and internships, Camel coasted on charm and excuses. When he finally joined the family business, it wasn't out of passion. It was a safety net, a backup plan in case his dreams of living large and free didn't pan out. At the office, he was careless, arriving late, leaving early, and scrolling endlessly on his phone while others scrambled to clean up his mistakes. But Abdul Rahman adored him. "He just needs time to grow into his role," their father would say whenever Alina pointed out her brother's failures. "He's still young." It was infuriating. No matter how much Alina proved herself, no matter how many times Camel failed, tradition placed him on the throne while she was left standing in the shadows. And now, with the words she had just heard in her father's office, tradition had spoken again. The breaking point. News of Camel's promotion spread quickly through the company. Employees offered Alina awkward smiles in the corridors, whispered condolences, as if she had suffered a death. Some were bold enough to say outright that the decision made no sense. Even those who liked Camel looked uneasy. He wasn't ready. Everyone knew it. But no one dared question Abdul Rahman. Alina tried to focus on her projects, but the bitterness ate at her. Every time Kamil brushed off a meeting or made another careless blunder, her blood boiled. She wasn't angry only for herself. She was angry for the company, for the employees who relied on Rahman exports for their livelihoods, for the legacy her father had built with sweat and sacrifice. And then one afternoon she heard it. Walking past a glass-walled conference room, she caught voices raised in frustration. She paused, heart quickening. "Kamil, this shipment delay is going to cost us thousands," a senior manager was saying. "We need to address this now." "I'm working on it," Kamil replied defensively, slouched in his chair. "It's not that big of a deal." "Not that big of a deal?" the manager snapped. "Do you even understand the implications? We could lose a major client over this." Alina peeked inside. Kamil avoided the manager's gaze, drumming his fingers on the table. Her stomach dropped. This wasn't just sibling rivalry anymore. His incompetence was endangering everything. The search for clarity. That evening, Alina sat at her kitchen table, the glow of her laptop casting long shadows across the room. She pulled up financial reports, shipment records, and client contracts, combing through the data with a sinking heart. Delays, lost accounts, oversights, patterns of negligence. Kamil wasn't just floundering, he was dragging the company toward disaster. Closing the laptop, Alina leaned back, rubbing her temples. The thought of confronting her father again filled her with dread. He'd dismiss her concerns as always. He would wave her off with that word, tradition. But silence wasn't an option anymore. She picked up her phone and scrolled to the contact she trusted most, Dr. Nadia Karim, her former professor and closest confidant. Nadia had guided her through the toughest years of university, challenging her to think boldly and act decisively. If anyone could help her now, it was Nadia. The line rang twice before Nadia's crisp voice answered. "Alina? What's wrong?" Alina's throat tightened. "I think I'm about to start a fight I can't win." Nadia didn't miss a beat. "Good," she said firmly. "That means it's worth fighting for." Father's blindness. Within weeks of Kamil's promotion, the cracks grew impossible to ignore. Shipments delayed. Contracts lost. Clients whispering about Rahman Export's declining reputation. At home, over dinner, Alina tried again. "How much time does he need, Papa?" she asked sharply, unable to contain her frustration. "Do you even realize how many accounts we've lost this month? We're on the brink of losing one of our biggest clients." Kamil rolled his eyes across the table. "Relax, Alina. I've got it under control." "Under control?" Alina snapped. "Like the Valencia shipment last week? Or the contract renewal you forgot to send?" "Enough," Mr. Rahman cut in, his voice stern. "We're not solving this over dinner." But Alina could see it, the flicker of unease in his eyes. He knew something was wrong. He just wasn't ready to admit it. That night, she called Nadia again. "He's too blinded by tradition," Alina admitted, pacing her living room. "He can't see that Kamil is in over his head." "And what are you going to do about it?" Nadia asked, her tone sharp. Alina stopped pacing, her hands trembling. "I don't know. What can I do? He's made it clear he doesn't think I belong in that seat." "Then prove him wrong," Nadia said simply. "Don't wait for him to hand you the reins. Show him you're the one who should be running the company." Her mentor's words lingered long after the call ended. Prove him wrong. It sounded so simple, yet it felt like the most daunting mountain she had ever faced. Alina Rahman barely slept that night. Nadia's words echoed in her mind. Prove him wrong. The phrase rolled through her thoughts like a drumbeat, steady and insistent. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling until dawn, her chest tight with restless energy. She had spent years preparing, years working harder than anyone else, and now her father's stubbornness and Kamil's carelessness were dragging everything into chaos. Enough was enough. By morning, she knew what she had to do. Gathering the evidence. The next week, Alina poured herself into research with a single-minded focus. She arrived at the office early and stayed late, long after most employees had gone home. Her desk disappeared under a growing stack of reports, shipment logs, financial statements, client feedback, and internal memos. She combed through every detail, highlighting patterns of negligence and failure. She built spreadsheets, charts, and graphs that laid out the decline in painful clarity. Every lost account, every missed deadline, every preventable delay, she cataloged them all. The deeper she dug, the worse it became. Camel's carelessness wasn't just frustrating, it was catastrophic. The company's foundation was beginning to crack, and if something wasn't done soon, Ramon Exports could collapse under the weight of its own mismanagement. But Alina wasn't just gathering ammunition. She was building a solution. She outlined a comprehensive plan, improved communication protocols, stricter accountability measures, and new operational systems to eliminate bottlenecks. She even proposed expansions into markets her father had never considered, backed by research and projections. This wasn't just a critique of Camel's failures. It was a vision for the company's survival and its future. Late-night calls. Nadia reviewed the plan during their late-night calls. "This is impressive," Nadia said one evening, her tone sharp with approval as she scrolled through the documents Alina had sent. "You've covered every angle: finance, logistics, client relations. It's bulletproof." "Thanks," Alina murmured, though her stomach still churned with nerves. "But will it be enough? You know how my father is." "Forget about what he'll say," Nadia replied. "This isn't about his approval anymore. It's about the company. It's about the hundreds of employees who depend on you. And it's about proving to him, to Camel, to everyone, that you're the leader this business needs." Alina closed her eyes, letting the words sink in. She had spent so much of her life chasing her father's respect that it was hard to imagine acting without it. But Nadia was right. This was bigger than tradition, bigger than approval. This was survival. The warning from within. 2 days later, a knock on her office door pulled Alina from her spreadsheets. She looked up to see Farid Ansari, the company's sales manager, stepping inside. His face was tight with unease. "Alina," he said, closing the door behind him. "Do you have a minute?" "Of course," she replied, gesturing to the chair across from her. "What's going on?" Farid hesitated before speaking. "It's Camel," he said finally. "He missed another client meeting this morning. And when I tried to follow up, he brushed it off. Said it wasn't a big deal." Alina's jaw tightened. "Which client?" "One of our biggest," Farid said gravely. "If we lose them, the financial hit will be devastating." She leaned forward, heart sinking. "Does my father know?" "I tried to bring it up last week," Farid admitted, "but he brushed me off. Said Camel just needs time." Alina sighed heavily, the weight of the situation pressing down on her shoulders. "Thank you for telling me, Farid. I'll handle it." When he left, Alina sat in silence, staring at the reports on her desk. It was no longer just her fight. Employees like Farid were counting on her to step up. If her father wouldn't face the truth, she would have to make him. Preparing for battle. Over the next several days, Alina refined her plan until it gleamed like a weapon. She anticipated every question, every objection, every way her father might dismiss her. For each, she had an answer ready. The decision weighed on her. She knew what was at stake, not just the company, but her relationship with her father. Confronting him directly would mean challenging decades of tradition, perhaps even breaking the fragile bond between them. But silence was no longer an option. Finally, she made the choice. She called for a family meeting. She wanted her father there. She wanted Camel there. And she wanted them both to hear the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The night before the meeting, Alina couldn't eat. She sat at her dining table, the folder of documents beside her, her nerves thrumming like wires stretched too tight. She imagined every outcome. Her father dismissing her again, Camel lashing out, the plan falling apart. The thought of failure clawed at her chest. But beneath the fear was something stronger. Determination. She couldn't back down. Not now. Not when the future of Ramon Exports was on the line. She touched the folder, running her fingers across its edges as if drawing strength from the paper inside. "This is it," she whispered to herself. "This is the fight I was born for." The family confrontation. The following evening, the dining room felt less like a family space and more like a battlefield. Mr. Rahman sat at the head of the table, his expression as unreadable as stone. Kamil slouched in his chair, scrolling through his phone until their father shot him a sharp look. Alina stood at the other end, the folder clutched tightly in her hands. "Well, Alina," her father said at last, breaking the silence. "You called this meeting. Let's hear it." Alina's pulse pounded, but her voice came steady. "Thank you. I need to talk to you both about the company. And I need you to listen." She opened the folder, laying the documents on the table. "I've been reviewing our performance over the past few months. It's clear we're heading toward a crisis. Shipments are delayed. Clients are leaving. Our reputation is suffering. If we don't act now, we could lose everything." Kamil let out a derisive laugh. "Come on, Alina. It's not that bad. You're blowing this out of proportion." Her gaze locked onto him. "We've lost 3 major clients in the last month, Kamil. One of them had been with us for over a decade. Does that sound like nothing to you?" His smirk faltered, but he didn't reply. Alina turned to her father, sliding the reports across the table. "This is the financial impact of those losses. And this," she pulled out another set of documents, "is the feedback from the clients who left. They all say the same thing: poor communication, missed deadlines, and lack of leadership." Her father's brow furrowed as he flipped through the papers. His jaw tightened, though he said nothing. "Why haven't I seen these before?" he asked finally, his voice sharp. "Because no one wants to upset you," Alina replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. "Everyone is afraid to tell you the truth. But I'm not." The room went still. Mr. Rahman leaned back, arms crossed. "And what is this truth, Alina?" "That Kamil isn't ready for this role," she said bluntly. "And if we keep pretending he is, we'll lose the company." Kamil shot to his feet, face red with anger. "This is ridiculous. You've always been jealous because I'm the one in charge and you're not. Just admit it, Alina. You can't stand that I'm the heir." Alina stood firm. "Jealous." Her voice rose with fire. "You think I want this for my ego? This isn't about me, Kamil. It's about the employees who depend on us. It's about the clients who trust us. It's about Papa's life's work. And right now you're throwing it all away." Kamil's fists clenched at his sides, but he had no answer. Alina softened her tone, though her eyes remained fierce. "I'm not saying this to hurt you, Kamil. But you know as well as I do, you're not ready for this. And that's okay. No one's blaming you. But if we don't act now, it'll be too late." She turned back to her father and slid another folder across the table. "This is my plan. It addresses the problems we're facing, improving communication, streamlining operations, regaining client trust. I've mapped out every step, with immediate actions we can take." Mr. Rahman opened the folder. Silence filled the room as he flipped through the pages, his face unreadable. Alina watched him, her heart pounding, every second stretching into an eternity. Finally, he looked up. His eyes were sharp, conflicted. "This is a good plan," he admitted. "But leadership isn't just about plans, Alina. It's about responsibility." Alina's voice did not waver. "And I've been responsible my entire life. You know that, Papa. You've seen it. I've worked harder than anyone. I care more than anyone. I've earned this. All I'm asking for is a chance to prove it." The room was still. Mr. Rahman's gaze lingered on her, heavy with decades of tradition and expectation. Then slowly he turned to Kamil. "What do you think?" he asked. Kamil looked stunned. "What do I think? You're seriously considering this?" "I am," Mr. Rahman said quietly. "Because Alina's right. The business can't survive if we continue like this." Kamil opened his mouth to argue, but stopped. His shoulders slumped as he sank back into his chair. "Fine," he muttered. "Let her do it." Mr. Rahman turned back to Alina, his expression solemn. "You'll have your chance, Alina. But understand this, it won't be easy. You'll have to prove yourself every step of the way." Alina's throat tightened, but she nodded firmly. "I understand, Papa. And I won't let you down." That night, as Alina left the dining room, Relief and pride surged through her chest. For the first time, she had broken through her father's wall of tradition. She had won the battle. But deep down, she knew, the war was only just beginning. That day remained etched in Alina's memory, the day her father finally gave her the authority to make decisions for the company. When she walked into the office the next morning, every face looked different. The receptionist's eyes carried an unfamiliar steadiness. The accountant's tone held cautious hope. But what she felt most clearly was fear. People didn't know how to react to the idea that a woman, and that too from within the family, was actually taking the wheel of Ramon Exports. Alina called the employees into the conference room. Camel was there as well, sitting stiffly, his expression a mixture of anger and humiliation. When Alina opened her folder and began explaining the new systems she wanted to implement, the air in the room grew heavy. "From today, deadlines are sacred," she said firmly in English. Then she repeated in Urdu, so there could be no confusion. "There will be no more delays. Every shipment must leave on time. Whoever is responsible will be held accountable." Some employees lowered their heads. Others exchanged wary glances. Farid Ansari, the sales manager who had always been concerned about the company's decline, finally spoke up. "Your plans sound promising, Alina Sahiba, but we'll need resources. And we must rebuild trust with our major clients. This won't happen in a day." Alina looked at him and nodded with a faint smile. "I'll bring the resources. And I'll speak to the clients myself. All I ask from you is honesty in your work." Her voice carried a confidence no one had ever seen in her before. When the meeting ended, some employees began to secretly lean toward her side. But nothing was easy. Many of the older drivers and warehouse staff still believed Camel was their real boss. They followed his orders, ignored hers. Several times, Alina had to go directly to the warehouse herself. One afternoon, she found a shipment being packed carelessly, boxes half-sealed and products unprotected. She stopped the workers immediately. "Every carton that leaves this warehouse is a promise to a client," she said, her voice firm but not unkind. "If we are careless, why would anyone trust us?" Her words sank in, though not everyone obeyed. Some muttered under their breath. "Men have run this business for years. What can a woman really change?" The words cut like poison, but Alina swallowed the bitterness. She knew real change would take time. At night, she returned home exhausted, often skipping dinner, and shared everything with Nadia over long phone calls. "There's resistance everywhere," Alina admitted, her voice heavy with fatigue. "But I can't step back now. Father is watching me. Camel is waiting for me to fall. And the employees, they're testing me, deciding if I'm worth following." "You're the first person to show them the truth," Nadia reminded her gently. "People always resist change, but your patience and consistency will win them over." The following weeks, Alina began handling clients personally. At first, they were surprised. Many expected Camel, some even her father. But gradually, her sincerity broke through their skepticism. She listened carefully, took notes, and offered practical solutions. One longtime client, who had almost cut ties with Ramon Exports, changed his mind after meeting with her. "I trust you," he said simply. "You're the first to take my concerns seriously." The victory seemed small, but to Alina, it was monumental. When she told her father at home, his face softened for the first time in years. "You've done what Camel never managed," he admitted quietly. But then his expression hardened again. "Remember, this is only the beginning. The real test is yet to come." Camel's frustration grew with every success she earned. He felt his pride slipping, his position diminishing. One evening, unable to hold back, he confronted her directly in the office hallway. "You think you're proving something?" he sneered. "This is all temporary. Father will always make me the heir. You can work yourself to death, but at the end of the day, you're just an assistant who's forgotten her place." Alina looked at him steadily, her voice calm but edged with steel. "You're right, Camel. I'm not the heir. I'm the leader. And one day, you'll understand the difference." He froze at her words, then turned away in silence. But in that silence, Alina sensed something dangerous brewing. That night, she opened her diary and wrote, "From today, I will work without fear. If I have to prove myself, if I have to save this company, I'll do it with every drop of my blood and sweat. Even if I fall, I will rise again." Time moved forward, and with it came daily trials. Sometimes it was a warehouse issue, sometimes a delayed shipment, sometimes a furious client. But Alina faced each challenge head-on, finding practical solutions instead of excuses. Slowly, employees began to realize she wasn't just giving speeches or showing off charts. She was standing with them in the trenches, doing the work alongside them. One afternoon, the same old driver who used to mock her pulled her aside. "Madam," he said hesitantly, "today I saw you spend 3 hours in the heat making sure every carton was packed right. No boss has ever done that. From now on, I'm with you." In that moment, Alina felt the shift. Change was beginning. But far from the light of her progress, in the shadows, Camel was plotting. He couldn't watch his sister rise while he sank into irrelevance. Quietly, he gathered a group of old loyalists, friends, former staff, and employees still clinging to tradition. He whispered promises, painted Alina as an imposter, and began crafting a plan to sabotage her leadership. Alina had no idea the real storm was only just approaching. The first signs of sabotage were subtle. An order that had been properly confirmed suddenly went missing from the system. A truck that was scheduled for dispatch never showed up. At first, Alina blamed simple human error. But when the mistakes piled up, too many to be coincidence, she began to suspect something darker. Late one night, she stayed in the office long after everyone had gone. Files spread across her desk, her laptop glowing in the dim light. She traced the patterns of delays, cancellations, and sudden miscommunications. Again and again, one name surfaced, someone linked closely to Camel. Her heart sank. She had wanted to believe her brother would come around, but the evidence was undeniable. He wasn't just resisting her leadership, he was actively trying to undermine it. The next morning, she called her father into the conference room. He arrived with his usual stern expression, cane tapping softly against the floor. "You wanted to speak, Alina?" "Yes, Papa," she said, forcing her voice to remain steady. She handed him a folder thick with documents, timelines, and testimonies. "These disruptions aren't accidents. They're deliberate. And they all point back to Camel Circle." His eyes flicked over the pages, growing darker with each line. "Do you understand what you're saying?" he asked finally. "I do," Alina replied. "I wish it weren't true. But if we ignore this, the company will collapse. And it won't be the market's fault. It will be our own." Her father closed the folder with a heavy sigh. For the first time, Alina saw not the unshakable patriarch, but an old man torn between loyalty to tradition and the truth staring him in the face. "Leave this with me," he said quietly. "I'll speak to Camel myself." That evening, the confrontation erupted in the family home. Alina was not present, but she heard the raised voices echoing through the halls. Camel's defiance, her father's thunder, her mother's desperate pleas for peace. It was a storm she had long feared. When it was over, the silence that followed was heavier than any argument. The next morning, Camel did not come to the office. Days passed. Rumors swirled among employees, whispers of a rift within the Rahman family. Alina ignored them, burying herself in work, trying to hold the company together while waiting for the axe to fall. Then one evening, her father summoned her to his study. He was seated behind his desk, shoulders slumped, his face pale with weariness. "I spoke with your brother," he said, his voice low. "He admitted enough to confirm your suspicions. But he feels betrayed. He believes I've abandoned him." Alina's throat tightened. "Papa, I never wanted to take his place. I only wanted to save the company." He looked at her with tired eyes. "I know. But Camel cannot see it. He has left for now. Perhaps distance will teach him what I could not." A wave of guilt swept over her. Despite everything, despite his sabotage, Camel was still her brother. She remembered their childhood games, the laughter they once shared before business and tradition had poisoned their bond. She wanted to go to him, to make him understand, but she knew it would be futile. He had to find his own way. In the weeks that followed, Alina carried the weight of both leadership and fractured family ties. Employees, once divided, began to rally behind her. She implemented new training, reorganized departments, and restored discipline in the warehouses. Slowly, trust returned. Clients who had nearly walked away signed fresh contracts. Revenues climbed. One evening, after a long day, she walked past the conference room and paused at the window. The city stretched before her, lights glowing against the dark sky. For the first time, she felt not just relief, but pride. This was no longer about proving herself to her father or competing with her brother. This was about building something greater than any of them alone. Her father, too, had changed. Though his words were few, his actions spoke volumes. He no longer hovered, no longer second-guessed her decisions. Instead, he watched quietly as she grew into her role. One afternoon, he visited her office, leaning on his cane, and said simply, "You've done more in 6 months than I did in 6 years. The company is safe with you." Those words were worth more than any title. They were the acknowledgement she had craved her whole life. But the true test of her leadership came unexpectedly. A major international client, one who had been hesitant for years, proposed a partnership that could double the company's size. The deal was risky. One misstep could undo all her progress. Her managers were divided, half urging caution, half urging boldness. All eyes turned to her. Alina spent sleepless nights poring over every detail, weighing every consequence. Finally, she called a meeting. Standing before her team, she spoke with quiet conviction. "If we stay small, we survive. If we take the step, we thrive. I didn't fight this hard to keep the company breathing. I fought to make it live. We take the deal." The gamble paid off. Within months, Ramon Exports expanded into new markets, earning respect across the industry. The name that had been on the verge of collapse now stood as a symbol of resilience. At home, the family slowly healed. Her father softened, her mother smiled more often, and though Camel's absence was still a wound, Alina carried hope that one day he would return, not as a rival, but as a brother. Late one night, as she locked the office, she paused once more at the window, watching the city lights flicker like stars. She thought of the girl she once was, overlooked, dismissed, desperate for approval. That girl was gone. In her place stood a woman who had earned her place, not by tradition, not by inheritance, but by sheer strength and unshakable will. This was her company now, her future, and she was ready for whatever came next. And with that, our story comes to an end, but the real story begins with your thoughts. What would you do if you were in this situation? Let me know in the comments.